So it occurs to me that we should be able to test without jumping into this XR emulator, because we have transformed the Babylon.js API into a series of events. So we have lower level events for movement and component presses, transformed into slightly higher level events of a grip being squeezed. Here's the distinction. We have continuous values such as you're squeezing something, left squeeze, and the difference between this squeeze and this squeeze is that these are continuously streamed, because this XR component here has a value here, which is a number between 0 and 1, I think, of how hard you're pressing. So as you press, you might get maybe 10, 50, 10 to 20 values as you press down, depending on how quickly you're pressing. The message that XR Grip Manager creates from these lower level events is a higher level grip squeezed, which, because of the filtering that happens here, you're only going to get one alternating squeeze and release between these two values. So that means that I should be able to emit this on the console. So if I say console signal hub movement emit left grip squeezed, it should go through this pipeline here, which says I got here, and it finds an intersecting mesh, which right now we've hacked this to always find the intersecting mesh by interactable, so just return the first one. This following isn't isn't executed. Excuse me. And then it will make sure that you only continue if you found a mesh, and then you save the intersected mesh, and then you load some tags, and then we're gonna treat different behaviors based on those tags. So this basic interactable will I guess stop the whole process if your other hand says it squeezed it, and then that will allow you to squeeze it again and get another message of entity grabbed. And if you release it with the same hand, it'll say entity released. I believe that's what happens. So let's give this a try. Copy this, go over here. Let's see what happens if we do signal hub emit this, and we did not get any console log here. That is interesting. Is it because this code isn't loaded unless you jump into XR mode? Is that right? Let's try that. Binding. Let's try to emit this again. Okay, now it works. Oh, because let's see, XR Manager has this thing about enable this experience. So, well, no, this should be enabled from the get-go. Setup camera movement. Okay, this can't happen if there's no... Okay, so when is this called? This is called... Oh, not in the instructor. Yeah, when is this called? So in the scene manager, okay. It's called when the client is ready. it emits some XR state change stuff. Set up camera movement, which waits for the camera. But does the camera exist yet? Base experience. Okay, I think they're available, but they aren't triggered because the controller added observable didn't kick in yet. Observable is added, but it doesn't kick in, so it's none of it's initialized until it's actually gone into XR mode. So once we have that, we do get that the entity is grabbed, and if we now release it, so we say released, we get that it was released. And what happens if you try to grab it twice? Which shouldn't be possible, so it shouldn't. Will it say this again? I think it might say this again. I think nothing's stopping it from saying it again, yeah. What happens with the release? What happens if the other hand... Okay, so if this left squeezed and then right squeezed, I don't think this will emit anything. Okay, it says grabbed by the other hand. And then, and then left released. It says nothing. Okay, so it is kind of working. Now we want to get into some other scenarios. For example, let's say if the tags includes shootable, let's say. And let's modify this to find meshes by interactable. Change the mesh. Well, here let's just only test that scenario, which is return maybe this shootable. These aren't composable. It's like they take over the whole thing, don't they? As well, I'm not sure this needs to be a switch map. Let's see. Shootable. Just bear with me for a second. Shootable. What happens here? If it's shootable, we want to listen for, let's see, signal hub, movement, and how about clean I think we need left trigger down and up. So left trigger, squeeze, left trigger, released, and so how to emit these, we'll simply do the same thing with the trigger. So these are supposed to be squeeze. And we'll simply repeat this for trigger. Left trigger. So with the shootable movement on this hand, trigger squeezed. So we'll listen for this. But we'll take until this needs an observable input, right? So signal hub movement. You'll take until you let it go. Grip released. Either this or the other hand took it. So if you switch it into this, anytime you get a squeeze, you're saying console log fire bullet. Okay, let's check this out. So enter XR, and we're going to go into the left grip squeezed, and now we're in the gun. So if we say left trigger squeeze at this point, we get fire bullet, fire bullet, fire bullet, and then left grip released, and then if we were to squeeze it again, it doesn't fire the bullet. Now would this still happen if I didn't use switch map? I think you could have just tapped into it. But switch somehow cancels the rest. I'm not totally. Switch map maps a set of observable values into other observables, mapping them into values as well. We take the value. I'm not really doing anything with those final values. I just want to invoke their listeners. I think the behavior would have been the same if I just did this. Left trigger, left grip squeezed, left trigger squeeze. Oh, it didn't do it. Ah, interesting. It didn't actually jump into it. So switch map is doing something. it's like registering for it. Left grip squeezed. Left trigger squeezed. Now I get to fire bullet. And left grip released. Left trigger squeezed. Didn't do anything. I've got to grab the gun again. Left grip squeezed. Left trigger squeezed. Left grip released. Now how do I compose? So it kind of gets what I want. Return erase pipe. It's more like these are subscriptions that you want to subscribe to them. So if you tapped, they would subscribe, but they wouldn't unsubscribe. Right? So if you did a tap, and you want to do the shootable.subscribe. Grip squeezed, left trigger, and then left grip released. If I trigger again, it doesn't do anything. Right, so that does what I want, but what happens if I grip again? Will it subscribe twice? So left grip squeezed, left trigger squeezed. It doesn't seem like it does because we're not getting fire bullet emitted twice. Then left trigger, left grip released, and it's gone. So I think maybe it's okay. I'm not totally positive about having a subscribe within a tap. That's my limited understanding of how to use RxJS, but maybe this works for now. So we could somewhat do it like this. So if we're just subscribing to multiple things here, if it's shootable, then you say shootable subscribe, and then otherwise, or if and, it's like basic interactable, then you can say some other conditions, then you just subscribe to this as well. In fact, we can just test this, that we'll just subscribe to both of these right now, in which case it will also respond to this entity release thing. So we get left grip squeezed. We get, okay, it was grabbed. And trigger, firebolt. And left grip released. Entity released. And left trigger, nothing. So they are composable here, these two listeners. Alright, it's a good test. Let me think on the design a little bit.